In the Know, a radio program talking to the newsmakers in Ogle, Lee, DeKalb counties and beyond, keeping you in the know. Here's your host, Charles Van Horn.
Good morning and happy Sunday. Yeah, another edition of In the Know, this time joined by a weather person extraordinaire. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mark Henderson. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on.
Doing great, and you are a very busy person. If you've ever paid attention to the weather in the last 20-some years, you know of Mark Henderson, and you're with us this morning because, well, lots of things have happened in the last couple of months with you, but first, let's go all the way back to young Mark Henderson. What's your first sort of weather-related experience as a child that made you look up to the sky and kind of pay attention?
Oh, it was easy. I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and there was a tornado warning in my hometown of Schaumburg, Illinois. And my parents were freaking out and telling me, get to the basement, get to the basement, get to the basement. And I'm standing in the garage looking outside because I wanted to see the storm. And it was basically right then where I kind of felt I had my calling to do weather. Because, weather people, let's be honest, we're a little weird. And I had that weirdness from a very, very young age. And that's kind of stuck with me ever since.
It is sort of traditional in the Midwest to hear the sirens and instead of, go to the basement, or back in the old days when we were taught to open the windows, remember that craziness? Which
I do remember that, yes.
Yeah. Let's go stand near the area where busted glass will go flying. And now it's turned into a whole bunch of different safety things. But with cell phones and everything else, everybody still wants to capture that magic moment, which every person will tell you, please don't. Please go into the basement.
Yes, if 46-year-old me could tell 3-year-old me something different, back then, I definitely would have reconsidered my choices back then. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it definitely wasn't the smartest thing. And when we do say these days, when we do say get inside, get to the basement, we really do mean it because that is the best way to stay safe. I may laugh about my decision, from when I was 3 or 4 years old now, but, looking back, it certainly wasn't smart. And so I know, in this age of cell phones and social media and whatever, it's the cool thing to do. It's not the smart thing to do, though. It is absolutely not. So, when folks tell you to get to the basement or to seek shelter, there's definitely a reason for that. And so I really hope that people do heed those warnings because I'd hate to see somebody get hurt or even worse because I just want to see the storm.
Let's talk about young you again. So college, did you go to school for weather forecasting, study meteorology, or was this sort of something that was just on the side?
No, it definitely was on my radar from a very young age. So you do the college visits, you make the loop around the Midwest or around the country, and you look at all these schools. And when I was a junior in high school, I loved the weather, but I didn't know if there was a future for me in that business. But we made the rounds. I first went to Augustana University first visited Augustana University in the Quad Cities and really fell in love with the campus. Then I went to Carroll University in the Milwaukee suburbs, and that's where my parents went. And I really loved the campus and loved being around a bigger city. And then I went to a little school in northwest Indiana called Valparaiso because it was a Lutheran university, and I grew up in a Lutheran church. And so it was that heritage that was really appealing to my family. And I went there, and I'm like, okay, I like this place, but I just don't know if it's for me. Well, we visited the varying departments. I was thinking about maybe going into thinking about maybe going into engineering. Then we visited the meteorology department, and we talked to the professors and what have you, and they said, the coolest things that we have to offer here is we have a very close relationship with WGN-TV in Chicago. And Tom Skilling, who's the legendary meteorologist. So I grew up watching Tom Skilling on the weather, and from the 3-4-year-old age on, I I always wanted to be Tom Skilling, and so I would watch him every single day. And then I hear, as a high school junior or senior, there's the possibility to maybe do an internship with him, actually meet the man himself. And so I decided on going to Valparaiso University just based on that relationship alone. And then, a few years down the road, I actually got that opportunity to intern with Tom Skilling and got to know him really well. He's a very good friend to this day. And that basically forever changed the direction of my life.
And that, of course, led you directly into TV. You did some time in radio, too, didn't you?
I had a little bit of radio background on the side. I worked for the college radio station. Then, it was basically one of those things where when you work in the small markets, I started in Cadillac, Michigan, and then I moved over to Rhinelander, Wisconsin. My first job in this business in TV paid me $16,000 a year. So you got to find an opportunity to make a little more money, and as we know in small market radio, it's little money, extra money. So I picked up a couple of shifts at some of the local radio stations just to supplement the paycheck a little bit here. So it was kind of a TV radio combination very early in the career. I still had relationships with radio stations, basically just doing the weather now for them. Even these days, but yes, there certainly is a radio background as well.
And then you made your way to Rockford, and let's talk about the long run there in Rockford. Obviously, Midwest has a lot of climate situations that occur, whether it be severe weather, blistering cold, always something happening weather-wise. It's very rarely boring here. What are some of the highlights during your career in Rockford that you remember where there was a weather story, whether it be flooding or winter or things like that really stands out, where you not only worked to make sure people knew accurate information, but realized this was a changing event for the people that you worked with in the community?
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there's no more, if you are into the weather, there is no more exciting place to be than the Midwest, and more specifically northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, because the reality is that there are few places, not just in the United States, but really in the entire world, that sees the varying weather conditions that we see here. I mean, we can see everything you mentioned, from the cold to the heat, from rain to snow, from thunderstorms to blizzards, to windstorms, dust storms. You have it. We live in a place that's absolutely fascinating when it comes to the weather. My very first day in Rockford, it was so I moved down to Rockford on July 4th of 2003, and the move went fine. It was a hot and humid day, and we knew there were some storms coming through the night of the 4th and the morning of the 5th of 2003. And, there was a nice storm that came through. And, in my apartment on the south side of Rockford, there were some tree branches down. We briefly lost power, but then we woke up the next morning and, okay, everything was fine. I still had to dodge a couple of tree branches on my way to work on my first day of work. Then I got to the station, and there was a sheriff's deputy sitting in the front parking lot. He asked me for my ID, and I said to the sheriff's deputy, "Sir, you weren't here when I interviewed for the job. What's going on?" And he said, "You haven't heard?" And I'm like, "I haven't heard what?" Because before this, there was no Facebook or social media, and I didn't have internet at my place at the time. I had just moved back the day before, and I'm like, "No, I hadn't heard anything." And he said, "Go take a look in the backyard, and you'll know why I'm here." So I went and looked in the backyard of the station, and there in the backyard, our 730-foot broadcast tower was completely toppled, and it looked like a roller coaster. It was nothing but twisted metal. That storm, the night of the 4th and into the morning of the 5th, completely knocked out the entire station, knocked us off the air, and it knocked out power to literally half of Rockford. There were 100,000 people in in Rockford that were without power. So I knew there was a storm, but I never knew it was that bad of a storm. And there were people without power for the first 2 weeks that I lived here. So that was my welcome to Rockford moment. So clearly, my career here got off to quite the start. And then from there, we did everything from blizzards. I remember the Groundhog Day blizzard of 2011. That completely crippled the city. We've had, obviously, the Fairdale tornado back in 2015, which I know folks down your way can much more directly relate to. But it's just been a fascinating run, and there have been so many events that have taken place over the time. And, people always say, I am not a fan of the winter here. I will tell you, I would much prefer the heat and the summertime weather over the punishing winters. But so people say, well, why don't you move somewhere warmer? And yeah, sure, that would be nice to, live on the beach or what have you in San Diego, but I'd get bored in 5 minutes there. So it's just such a fascinating place to live, and it offers such challenges. But I appreciate and enjoy all the challenges that living here presents.
So let's talk about the situation now. A few months back, you parted ways with Rockford Television, and now you're on your own, doing something that, again, didn't exist when your career started. Social media and the like. What are you up to? How are you reaching the people? And are you still doing the weather?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I walked into the TV station on a Wednesday late in May, and I was told that they had chosen to go in a different direction with regard to the weather operation, and that was a bit of a gut punch because growing up, this is really the only thing I ever wanted to do. So I let the dust settle for a little bit, and our family took a vacation, and over that vacation, we were in Washington, D.C., and my wife says, Mark, you could still do the weather. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, you can do it on Facebook and on YouTube. And I said, nobody's going to want to watch that. And I was kind of resistant to it, but then we got back from vacation, and I said, I still love forecasting the weather. I miss forecasting the weather. So I said, let's just give this the old college try. And I did. I started up a Facebook page, brand new, 0 followers, and we were sitting around the kitchen table one night and we said, well, what are we going to call this thing? And eventually, between my wife and kids and I, we came up with Mark Henderson's Weather Hub, your one-stop hub for all things weather in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin. So we created the Facebook page, and in the first day, we had 12,000 followers. I'm like, my goodness, I had no idea that people would be interested in anything like this, and it's since grown like wildfires ever since. And so, I'm doing a forecast nightly. I'm scratching that itch because you can take the weather out of the boy, or you can take the boy out of the weather. You can't take the weather out of the boy. I'm just still so fascinated with the weather. This gives me the opportunity to kind of scratch that itch and still, feel like I'm helping people plan their days. And if there's severe weather, helping them through those storms or those scary weather events. And so it's been phenomenal. The support from the public has been nothing short of amazing. And, so many local businesses have reached out and said, how can we help you? And so I subscribed to some data packages and some graphics packages so I could provide some of the pretty pictures that you see on TV. Well, unfortunately, those things cost a boatload, but some local businesses have stepped up and offered to sponsor the operation here, which helps me cover those costs. And so, and now we're at a point where ultimately, if enough businesses are interested, we could actually turn this into a profitable endeavor as well. I don't think it's anything I'll ever get rich off of, but if it allows me to continue to do what I love and, maybe make a few bucks on the side, I think we're going to do this for a while.
Meteorologist Mark Henderson. Keep in touch with him. Find the Weather Hub on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and good luck keeping track of the weather.
I I appreciate it. It's great to catch up with you guys. I've always appreciated working with and for you back in the day, and by all means, let's stay in touch.
Thank you for listening to this week's In the Know. The program returns next week at this time with another great conversation with someone from your community.